What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to a very special live edition of The Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams, and I am joined by a full crew here today. I've got one of my usual co-hosts with me, Kyle Henning, on the top right of the screen. How you doing tonight, Kyle?
Well, we had an episode planned to just kind of record and talk about all the things that have happened during free agency that the Chiefs really hadn't done anything. And then Garrett goes, "So what are we going to talk about on this episode?" And then 2 seconds later, he goes, "Never mind."
Yep, never mind. There is some news, turns out, to talk about all of a sudden. So also joining us, I want to start in a specific order here. We've got John Edwards, who is already scheduled to join us tonight. How are we doing, John?
Good. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Glad to have you on once again to talk some Chiefs. So obviously a very special occasion here. And then also joining us, a guy familiar to the program, and let's just say a guy who is having himself a night right now in many ways, Mr. Randy Ellenberger. How's it going, Randy?
I'm good. I'm trying to process and not potentially overact / lose my shit. So
yeah, it's gonna be a good night. So for those of you who have missed it and who haven't caught on to the title of this episode, the Chiefs, just as literally like 20 minutes ago, just signed Marquise Hollywood Brown, formerly of the Ravens and the Cardinals. He signed a 1-year deal worth up to $11 million. Had a 1,000-yard season for Baltimore in 2021. Had a kind of up and down years with the Cardinals, but tested the free agent market this year. His market reportedly wasn't as high as he might have liked, so he agreed to a 1-year deal with the Chiefs and is going to test the market again next year, per reports. This was linked for a while. Ever since free agency kind of started, this was linked. There was a lot of liking of Twitter posts by Hollywood Brown and following of Chiefs players on Twitter, and Patrick Mahomes following him on Twitter, and this whole ordeal. And so it finally came to a culmination.
Twitch stream. He was streaming on Twitch 2 nights ago, was playing games, playing Madden, I think, at one point, but towards the end of the stream or at one point during the stream, he stopped and was just watching like Chiefs highlights and then went and played as the Chiefs on Madden. There was a lot of things going on.
Dang. Yeah, that's a good one.
I only stumbled upon it because I happened to be scrolling through my Twitch feed, and it was like things you might be interested in. And Hollywood Brown is sitting there playing, and all I see is the Chiefs logo in the background.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, I'm kind of interested.
What does that say?
That's crazy. Yeah. So,
it's been all right. It's been a long 72 hours for Chiefs Kingdom, it feels like, judging by my timeline anyway.
Yeah.
It kind of seems like this has been the plan that they've had for a little while. Like, as much as there was conversation about Darnell Mooney and Curtis Samuel and Calvin Ridley before he signed a contract, I still am trying to physically wrap my mind around, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So, it's also like, and other guys like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, who just got traded to Chicago. But like, everybody was doing the panic button thing. And all right, I get it. I understand. I get both sides of this. Yes, they won the Super Bowl last year. Was their process perfect? Abso-freaking-lutely not.
Never is.
Now,
Never really is.
A lot of that had to do with a certain defensive lineman not having a contract agreed to last offseason that held a bunch of things up.
Yeah.
It looked like, per several sources, that there was going to be a lot of things being held up because of a different defensive player's franchise tag this year. It does not look to be that way, it appears. Or there may be more news that drops during this podcast. I don't know yet.
Imagine.
Oh, God,
we can't do that. We can't have two of them in one night. This is already crazy enough.
I guess my initial reaction is, for what is being reported, I'm all here for it. 1-year deal. It's probably going to have incentives. Shout out to Nate Taylor for his serenade during Only Weird Games. Yeah. If you listen to that and paid attention, you caught this might be coming. He basically sang to us that if Hollywood would take like a 1-year incentive laden, let's go win a ring and prove it, and then you can hit free agency again deal, that he would probably be a Chief, and he's a Chief. So, that's my initial reaction is, this is what I mean. Yeah, I'm good. I'm all good with this. This is a veteran in the room. Now they're going to go probably draft a guy high, first round, second round. I'm here. They've kind of patched all their holes except for the one at tackle, and still have up in the air a potential contract with their star corner that was leaving, who we can talk about later, may not be leaving now.
Yeah, that's some news tonight. John, I want to get your opinions on this one first before we let our guy Randy take the stage here. What are your initial reactions here?
Listen, I will. Do you want me to acquiesce to Randy, or I'm fine to do whatever?
Oh, no, go ahead, because this Randy might take
pretty long. Okay, perfect, beautiful. Listen, I'm higher than Ridley's guaranteed money right now, but I don't mind it. You know, it's a guy. He's got potential. We know what he can do. I do think the quarterbacks he's played with are legit arguments. He had a good season with Lamar. I mean, I'm not mad at giving it a try. For that kind of money, it's not like you're paying him really big money. He definitely, I think, is ring chasing for sure, which I admire. I think he'll fit in this offense. I definitely think Andy Reid's going to find a way to use him. So I don't think it's a bad risk. Especially, I trust Veach's drafting. This year's draft is loaded with wide receivers. So they're going to get somebody. And I think putting Hollywood beside that, he can still go stretch the field. There's a concern about drops. I know my friend George from Texas, he doesn't like it, but I think I like it, and I'm willing to see what happens on the field. If it costs us as much as MVS, we carried him for 2 years. If we can't catch anything, he's going to be able to.
I do feel like we should put the qualifier on John's. He likes him. I did ask John this earlier. Is there anybody you don't like? And he said, if they're better than MVS and Tony, I'm good with it. And my response was, that's an incredibly low bar. And he said, that's the bar. And I said, okay, fair.
That bar's as flat as my ass. But the thing is we won the Super Bowl last year with those guys. So Hollywood Brown's better than those two guys, and he's better than McCall, and he's better than Sky Moore. So
I got no argument on any of that.
$11 million. Let's just see what he's got.
Let's just see.
Worth? You're going to get 1 or 2 in the draft. So I like it. I like it right now.
Okay. So Randy, I know, this has been a very, very controversial topic, especially in the Kingdom Says group chat here. Because for those of you who are unaware, Randy has been probably the biggest anti-Hollywood Brown guy out there, period.
I don't think there's a probably needed in that sentence, but
yeah, that's probably a fair assumption. Randy, after hearing everything we just laid out and having some time to process this is real now. It's no longer just like dumb speculation. No, this is actually just real life. Hollywood Brown is a Chief. He tweeted out a photo of him wearing number 5. Here we go. What are your opinions today, Randy?
Well, at least it wasn't Darnell Mooney. We'll
okay.
start with that. So it's not necessarily that I hate Hollywood Brown. So let's put that aside. I don't hate Hollywood Brown like I hate Keenan Allen. Like Keenan Allen.
Oh, glad we covered those levels.
Can't stand that guy. The thing that drove me nuts the most about all this Marquise Brown crap is it's a whole lot of the same problems that we had with our guys last year. Okay, so he had one solid season in Baltimore 3 years ago. Okay, barely over 1,000 yards, 91 catches, fine. 91 catches out of 146 targets. This is my biggest problem with him. The dude catches 59% of the balls thrown his direction. Now, I understand his quarterback play has not been spectacular, but if the ball's in your general vicinity and you're a professional wide receiver, it's my biggest thing with MVS and Sky Moore and Tony last year. If the ball hits you in the hands, you're paid to catch it. Catch the damn ball. So less than 60% of his targets are caught. That's my biggest thing. Okay. Also health. Okay. He's 5'9". He's $180. Okay. He's a small dude. Garrett, we've had this conversation a ton about Xavier Worthy. It's my same fear. They're just not built to take the NFL pounding. So he's going to miss games, guaranteed. Okay, count on him missing 2 to 4 games next season. Period.
Yeah, not some unfamiliar to Chiefs wide receivers.
Okay, so if you take away that 1,000-yard season out of his career stats, he averages, Garrett, I see that. He averages about 500 yards a season.
Buy him one for Christmas.
That's not fantastic.
We're gonna start a fund, I think.
You guys are killing me. Just
I'll
killing
put every bit of
me.
fine autograph pictures. You know,
Yeah, something.
Those
signed gloves.
are the key things of what drives me nuts about this. It's like, oh, bring in Hollywood Brown. He's going to be the savior. He's going to be the one. He's going to be the veteran present. He's going to do all these things. Okay, we already had veterans who have the same problems that this guy has in the locker room. And it was our assumption, and my assumption specifically, is that he was going to want a bag. I was figuring he wasn't going to sign for anyone under $15 million a year. And I said
that's what he thought too.
I said yesterday, I wouldn't pay over $8 million flat a year for him. Okay, so his contract comes out, rough number so far, 7 million base, 11 with incentives. I can handle that. Okay, if like I said, if we get this dude on the cheap and he proves himself, I can live with it. I'm not gonna like it. I'm not gonna do somersaults. Even if I could do somersaults, I still wouldn't do them. But 7 million, 11 with incentives. If he can stay healthy and if he can catch the goddamn ball, fine.
Okay, so I was all right. I did the whole bit a little. I was doing a little bit of a bit on Twitter with Randy about how much we didn't want Hollywood Brown around. I'm not as big of an anti-Hollywood Brown guy as Randy is by any stretch of the imagination. I do think that some of Randy's concerns are valid, specifically the health stuff. Look, when your quarterback specialty is Call of Duty and not the playbook, I'm not going to hold a ton against you. And also, I've watched. Look, this is no slight against Lamar. Lamar is a very good quarterback, but Lamar has a couple of elements in his game that he's not great at. And one of those is throwing to the middle of the field, and especially the deep middle of the field. And for a guy like Hollywood Brown, who lives there, that's not really a great mixture of combinations for you. And then when you didn't have those guys, your quarterbacks were named Tyler Huntley and who was the Cardinals quarterback? Didn't McCown play some snaps for them at one point while he was anyway?
Colt McCoy.
That was the guy. There was another one.
Yeah.
So I get some of the concerns. Also, I think Brett Veach was probably in somewhat of Randy's bag of yeah, that's all great, Hollywood, but no, you can come here and we can do a deal that gives you some money and lets you prove that it's not your fault and it's maybe some of the situations and environments you've been in's fault, and then go get a big old bag next year. Because this now gives them flexibility in the draft, which is something Brett Veach desperately wants. They hate going into the draft not having slots filled. Last year drove them, I'm sure, absolutely nuts entering the draft last year with not having at least a we could go play a game tomorrow roster on the field that they felt good about. What they've done over free agency, and that goes back to signing the number one free agent on the board, by the way. Just because he was your own free agent doesn't mean he wasn't the number one guy in the league.
That's true. He makes a good point.
They did that. They brought back a above average backup middle linebacker and a starting anywhere linebacker in Drew Tranquil, who absolutely loves it here by all accounts, judging by the deal that he took. Judging by the deal he took, and I know people are going to be like, what do you mean? Willie Gay got paid way less. Yeah, because Willie Gay is not a green dot linebacker, guys. There are levels to these positions when you do this stuff. And that's a thing that is valuable as hell in the NFL. And if you don't believe me, go watch what happened when Nick Bolton didn't play last year.
Plus, Leo Chenal coming back, too, is going to be a nice little piece.
And Willie didn't – I think there was a lot of conversation about Willie's deal because it wasn't a big multi-year deal. And I don't think it was ever going to be with him for multiple reasons that we've kind of talked about, with his snaps going down somewhat last year. But also he doesn't want to stay in this locker room because they've kind of decided where your max is. And if you want to go show that you can be more than that and get a real bag, you have to go play. Like,
I think
so there's pieces to all of the decisions they've made, but as of right now, they can walk into a draft right now and feel like they can play a full game if they had to tomorrow without drafting a single body. And that's where Brett Veach wants to be every year he enters the draft. So
yeah,
this deal, this kind of setup, the stuff that's taking place, did they probably draw it up like going like this? Did they think they probably would have had a resolution to L'Jarius Sneed by now? Probably. Did they think there were some other things that would have happened by now? Probably. But for all that's taken place, and I know there's a lot of consternation about the interior defensive line room was off. Stop. Just stop. Please stop. I get it. I understand. But the contracts these guys are signed to, they could lose their job to draft picks in camp and not make the roster blink an inch. Like it's March 14th. Okay. It's March 14th. This is not even close to the final roster.
Yeah.
There's still a lot
of moves to be made.
Draft.
Yeah. It's good to see them finally come on the board though with something, really give us media folks something little treat to talk about here, because it's been a little boring. It's been a little boring for agency for the Chiefs so far.
I'll say, if your quarterback is happy and your head coach is happy, then I'm happy. And Patrick,
that's the biggest thing that we gotta
smiley face.
Yeah.
And Hollywood Brown posted on his Instagram, thank you, courtesy Harold Kuntz, for posting that one up there. Andy texted him, Hollywood, think red today. KC red with diamonds. Smiley face, Andy Reid. Hollywood replied, yes, sir. Love the sound of that. Heart, ring, think Hollywood Brown, lights, camera, action, and I think those are rocket ships.
I see that, yeah. That is quite the...
About that, I think this might make a fit. I think, Randy, your concerns are valid. The drops, of course, I think are a legitimate concern. He has dropped some big-time passes. The injuries, yes, 100%, I understand that. And there have been locker room issues. But I think the thing with this locker room is it's like a tightly wound. We know who the leaders are. Who are the leaders in Arizona? Does anyone know? No.
Yeah, they didn't have many.
When you walk into this locker room,
I don't know that they know the answer to that question, so I don't know how we could know the answer to that question.
They don't know. That's why
I'm not trying to take shots at the Cardinals players, but that organization has been dysfunctional is a nice word for like a decade. So
I mean, but I understand the injury concerns and all that, but I think Andy Reid, first of all, is going to love using a guy, and he likes personalities. He brought in Terrell Owens, and everyone's like, don't do that. He's a ped case. Yeah, but he's a hell of a receiver. And Andy can control those kind of guys. So I don't think that he's going to be the problem we think. I think he really knows that this is a huge opportunity for him, because if he performs well, because we're going to take dudes in the draft, like you said, we're going to have young receivers. I mean, everyone's down on Sky, but let's see Sky play in the slot. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think one of the biggest things.
Oliver Brown, who can do other things. He can go deep. Like that gives.
Yeah, he does have a good versatility factor added to him, and we talk about drafting receivers and whatnot. It gives you an option where you're not pigeonholed into having to draft a receiver in a certain round or a certain position, certain type of receiver.
You can take advantage of that variety that's out there.
Yeah, and like I said, they're going to add at least a couple more bodies to that receiver room, however they decide to do it. So there's not a huge expectation of him coming in. There's not a huge expectation of coming in and having to be a wide receiver one. It's not and I don't think unless they do the Kadarius Toney approach again this offseason, I don't think they're going to be peddling him as the next coming to Randy Moss here or whatnot. It's I think the expectations will be a good, role player. He'll probably get a couple hundred multi-purpose yards, and if he's not healthy for all the games, so be it. We're kind of used to that as Chiefs fans, anyways. The playoffs is when it really matters, which is what we've seen historically the past couple seasons happen. So it's a extra body in the receiver room. It's a good player. Could there have been better options, Randy? Maybe, but.
this
here
year's
we are.
wide receiver free agent class, I don't know about better. I just think most of it was different.
I really
fits.
didn't like this wide receiver free agent class. I'm not gonna lie.
It's just different fits, to be 100% honest with you.
It could have been awesome. It could have been a great free agent class without all the tags.
Right?
If you got
Yeah,
Davis
but
in
once,
there and you got Pittman, you get some of those other dudes, but
yeah, and I mean once you get the tags where you get Pittman and Higgins and the actual wide receiver free agents from this class, and you get down and then you see Calvin Ridley get paid like 50 guaranteed plus $1 million for 2 years.
After seeing Ridley's deal,
Ugh.
that made me think.
This
Okay,
is
there's
cheap
no
compared to that.
way. There's no way that Hollywood was going to sign for anything less than 15 after seeing Ridley's deal. So after seeing what we actually got him for, a little shocked.
And that's where we've talked for 5 years now about when, and I brought it up probably two or 3 years ago, when we would finally see guys start doing the things we watched them do with the Patriots. You want to call that ring chase. You want to call that take discounts to come chase rings. You want to call that hometown discounts or whatever the phrase is that you want to use for that. When would we start seeing that? And they finished the job this year. And I think that answered a lot of the league questions. Guys around the league were like, oh, okay, no, that's actually a dynasty. This is going to look like what it did in New England for a little while. We might as well just start jumping on board and going to collect our hardware there, or we're not going to get any. And because that was the mindset around New England for a lot of years. That's why they got guys like Randy Moss from the Raiders disgruntled, and they got numerous players that they probably should. I remember they used to take Cleveland to absolute school in the trading block every freaking year, it felt like. And it was like over and over and over again. And it's like, how does this keep happening? Well, because there's the players want to go there. They're willing to take different things and do certain things to get there. Organizations may not want to do things with them. Pittsburgh Steelers. That's still wild to me, because it could have been better. They tried to potentially apparently go get Deontay Johnson. They were in on Michael Pittman at one point before he got tagged and whatnot. It sounded like they were in on Higgins at one point, which that would have been hilariously bad.
That would have been nice.
Well, it would have been hilarious though. There would have been reasons for that, ulterior motives that it would have been funny besides just how much money it would have cost. But again, they do. I said this before. Brett Veach at least gets credit for learning from also when winning, because a lot of franchises can learn things when they lose and they don't get places and they don't achieve the goals that they want. It's very hard to win 3 of 5, to go to 4 of 5, to basically be AFC Championship game as the floor for your starting quarterback since he's been in the league, and learn from things. But they've learned from things every single year. He's not made the same mistakes twice. And if that's what it takes, that's great, because he's like 40. He's going to be here for a minute.
He's going to be around. He's going to be doing this stuff for a long time. If this is what
you can expect, that's a good thing. And like I said, you're not getting perfect players in free agency, but the main thing you don't want to do in free agency is overpay for imperfect players, and they haven't done that. It doesn't seem like.
And we saw last year, I mean, a very big theme of free agency, just finding kind of some bargain bin guys that you can insert into specific roles, and then they ended up having just phenomenal seasons. I mean, Drew Tranquill, Charles Menahue,
Mike Fennell,
and later in the season, sometimes you can find
Morton had a better year because he finally started down the stretch last year to fully be back from that injury, to fully recover and show you some of the things you saw pre-injury. Look,
I great to see Kirk Wharton get re-signed too. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Get to see him back. Yeah, Mike Pennell back, Derek Nottie. They're just re-signing every defensive tackle on the roster, basically.
I know that we love the big shiny free agent signings, but remember when the AFC West 2 years ago, 3 years ago spent the AFC itself, but the AFC West spent almost $1 billion to try to keep up with the Chiefs. You know how many of those guys got cut this year?
A lot.
Yeah. The Chargers.
You know how much dead cap some of those dudes are counting for? The Chargers starting lineup 48 hours ago, guys, was Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Gerald Everett. right now, it is Justin Herbert, Gus Edwards, Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer, and Will Dissly.
I like the sound of that.
What?
That's great. Yeah.
Not
Keenan
for
Allen
them.
trade to the
What
Bears,
happened?
4th round pick. Like, come on.
The Buffalo
What are we
Bills.
doing?
The Buffalo Bills cut their whole freaking defense.
They did.
Why?
Yeah,
Well,
did.
because they overpaid Von Miller like God.
Yeah, there's some teams that are really struggling with the salary cap around the NFL. Chiefs fans definitely have to acknowledge how fortunate that we are that we have both the salary cap advantages that some of the contracts have, and also just very confident people behind the scenes who are making that stuff work. Because we learned from the last Kansas City GM, John Dorsey, phenomenal drafter of talent, but when it came to handing out contracts, his contracts were pretty bad. They were pretty bad contracts. So Brett Veach, obviously being underneath that John Dorsey web, he's not going to make that same mistake. He's definitely very firm in what he needs to do. Usually in free agency, he doesn't really, we haven't seen an overpay yet, really, except for, I guess you could maybe.
So well.
Yeah, there's just not even really like a big one that you can point out.
Tooney is the biggest money free agent he signed.
Well, and
that's
not
turned out
even
awesome.
Overpay at this point. Look at the rest of the guard contract. Robert Hunt just got paid $100 million by the Panthers.
Yeah,
They got to get a stepladder for Bryce Young to even seal.
Because Robert Hunt, by the way, for those of you that aren't aware, is like 6'6". So
big guy. Yeah,
I like what he did on the defense. I like bringing back Naughty and Wharton because they know the system. They're still relatively youngish. They're not super old. They're, like you said, they're inexpensive. You want to Super Bowl with them last year. You could do it again this year. I do think we drafted a defensive tackle to groom somebody younger to come in.
They may be trying to develop Neil Farrell still, too.
So.
They traded for him last year.
I think we add to it. I don't think it's a first-round pick, but I think maybe third, fourth, something like that. We would add a defensive tackle into the mix. But I like what he's done. I mean, like, he's smart with the money. And, in the end, I think we know where the bread's buttered. It's the trenches for the most part. So, but
I want to ask Randy this. This is what I want to ask Randy, because Randy's the draft guy. And so I mentioned it earlier with this kind of sets them up to go in any direction in the draft game. When you're drafting, when you're looking through a draft, how much better is it to be positionally flexible when you're drafting these first 100, basically the first top 100 picks, however many you end up with in that top 100? How important is it to be able to vary? Okay, there's a stupid run on wide receivers in the first round because everybody's like, well, it's a deep class, but if we don't get our guy, they're going to be all gone because people are just going to be taking them crazy. And so then you get to 30 into the 30s and 8 or 9 wide receivers have gone. Now what? Well, now you're not pigeonholed into taking wide receiver because you have Hollywood Brown, you have Rashee Rice, you have some answers at positions. They're going to give Sky Moore another chance. I know everybody doesn't want to hear that. They're going to put him at. It's going to happen.
They'll get a chance, but it ain't going
they're going to give him an option.
But
they're going to give him an option.
Like it's huge. It's a huge advantage because you get so many of those teams that draft in the top half of the first round. They're not very good teams, and there's some huge holes that they have to fill. So now, after watching Veach, replenish the defensive tackle room with familiar faces, does it move the needle for us? Does it make us like super excited? No, not necessarily, but it's faces that we're familiar with. It's guys that know the role. That also makes our pick way more flexible. So now we signed Hollywood. We do have some wide receivers on the roster that have potential. Okay. So that leaves us, really at left tackle being our biggest question mark still to me. So we're sitting at 32. Say there's a big run on wide receivers, 8 guys go. That means that there's a couple pretty good offensive tackles that have slipped. There's probably a couple pretty good defensive tackles that have slipped. And there's also some still pretty good wide receivers that are going to be really good value in round 2 as well. So if there's a run on wideouts, we have Hollywood, we have Rice, we still have Tony and Sky and, a couple other guys that might step up and do something. I think left tackle definitely becomes the more focal point in the first round for us. or you see one of those defensive tackles slip and slide. But yeah, flexibility is huge. If you don't have to run up and get somebody, and you just kind of play the game and you let the chips fall as they may, and next thing you know, you're sitting there at your pick, and you really have three positions that you kind of want to go in, and there's decent guys at each one of those positions. It's best player available because you already have the roster set. You don't have to take it back.
I think that you mentioned about the flexibility, and you mentioned about the left tackle. I think you're right. It's an important position. And I love L'Jarius Sneed. If he stays, if he signs, it's amazing. I have no problem with it. I do believe, however, we have the depth behind him to deal with his loss. I do believe that. But I think one of the reasons for trading him is then you have more draft capital to maybe move up in the draft to grab that grab maybe that kid from Georgia, Mims. To grab, like, you're not going to get the Joe Alt. That's like, he's going to be gone in the top 10. At least he should be.
That would be so nice.
Yeah, but there's like,
I heard he's got really big character problems, and nobody should draft him until like 31 or 2.
32, probably. Let him fall to 32.
Big issues out of he had so many character issues out of Notre Dame. No, I'm kidding. 100%.
Like vanilla ice cream.
But like, I just think that, like, if we're looking at trading Sneed, and obviously everyone wants to get it too. So, I mean, I think it's still possible. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think it's possible. But I think if you get a 2 and a 5 or something like that, you might be able to turn some of those picks into a really good left tackle. And then, like you said, like, you're still going to have a second pick, a third pick. I mean, you're going to be able to get a wide receiver, a guy who can, like, I still like Jermaine Burton at Alabama. I think he's really, really good. Kingsley, yeah. Kareem's been talking about Kingsley a lot. Like, I mean, you might even get him at 32. But I do think offensive tackle first, because I think
you may be able to get him at 45 or 46 if you were to trade L'Jarius, and not necessarily. Right. I've seen him there's potential that there's some tackles deeper in this draft than I think.
Yeah. But again, you don't have to trade L'Jarius. I'm just kind of making an argument for.
I get it. That's still definitely a point of contention, even that who even knows. Per Nate Taylor on Oiling Weird Games, like the likelihood of Sneed getting traded goes down and down by the day. As each day goes by, the potential of him returning really increases.
He also said something extremely interesting today about him, L'Jarius. I'm trying to quote him correctly, lobbying to stay in Kansas City, which
there's it's a big fact. Like, there is two sides to this. Where does L'Jarius Sneed rather want to play? He can go ahead and then accept he doesn't want to play on the tag, but as far as seeking trade destinations, like if it's not working out for whatever reason, like, I would push pretty hard to just stay with KC too. I know Nate mentioned on Only Weird Games a potential 3-year deal. That's really a 2-year deal that would get him, some good money still, get him a payday, but also give him some more long-term security and really run it back. This is the year to do it. If you're going to restructure some guys to make room and fit as many superstars as you can, this would be the year to do it. And so, per reports, like, the Chiefs have been looking for a second and then some probably for Sneed. And, if by whatever reason that isn't really, that market isn't really getting much traction for him, then it makes sense for their side to keep Sneed as well. But
we'll know the week of the draft.
I want to say this to Garrett's point. I want to say this to Garrett's point about So the 50-50 is one thing. The deal is one thing. There's not two sides to this. There's at minimum 3 sides, and it's probably 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 sides, because remember, there's bidding war stuff involved in this. When it came to the other teams, as far as compensation goes back in reverse to the Chiefs for him, there's how much they're willing to pay L'Jarius once they agree to trade that capital to him. There's the conversation that we've talked about on this show. The Chiefs understand his knee, but that don't mean that everybody else does. And he didn't practice much during the weeks. There's maintenance, there's knee stuff, there's questions about that knee. There have been. So his market may not be what he thought it was. They may not have got as much in return as an offer as they thought as they wanted. Teams may not be willing to part with as much as the Chiefs. Like, there's all kinds of pieces to this, which is what makes the tag and the trading options a much more difficult thing to do. I do think that if you had a perfect world, where you could get him back on like a 3-year deal that's really a 2-year deal, and get him a chance to go into free agency at 30 again or 31 again, and maybe he's proven the knees fine and there's no things and he still played at a high level, great, while he still gets security. I think some of the reason that you saw guys like Derek Nottie and Turk Wharton and some of the other guys that took basically what appear to be vetman deals, I think their markets probably dictated, hey, I can go get paid this or maybe a couple $100,000 or $1 million more than this elsewhere, or I could stay here, basically make the same amount and not play with Patrick and them and not go get a shot at the three-peat, because none of these deals have been long-term things either. So
Yeah.
Snead is an interesting conundrum. I became interested in and becoming more of the mind that they may not deal him when, as soon as Rappaport tweeted what he tweeted a week and a half ago or whatever it was, about them being comfortable with him playing on the tag. Now, they may not actually be comfortable with it, and Snead may not actually be comfortable with it, but the fact that that was even mentioned by Ian when we hadn't really heard that before, that was kind of the first piece to me of, hey, this may not be going the way that all the parties thought it would, or it may be going exactly how Kansas City thought it would and not how Legarius and some of the other teams thought it would. And that's another piece to it. So from that aspect, I don't want to pigeonhole us into, hey, I don't think you have to have him to win another Super Bowl, but I do think it makes it a lot easier. I'll put it that way.
Oh, for sure. Legarius he's a dynamic player that does a little bit of everything so incredibly well.
Yeah, also, just a little report from a source coming live here. I don't know exactly the record of this guy, but
USA Today, and he's been tweeting about this situation quite a bit over the last week.
So just something to monitor. Another source saying strong winds, maybe Snead
basically
returns.
what I just said.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like
so,
and I am 100% okay with that situation playing out.
Yeah,
like
I would love it.
Before, there is great depth, with Jalen Watson and Josh Williams behind Snead. We have some capable guys who have played a lot of snaps and made some big plays. Played hurt, exactly. So we have some talent behind him. Veach has done a phenomenal job at finding DBs in the draft,
and Dave Merritt
has done
an incredible job
with Snead and even Watson in the 7th, and what was Williams, a 3rd or 4th?
Fourth,
2 years
I think.
ago?
Yeah.
Fourth. I think it was
fourth. Out of an HBC.
Again,
fantastic player. He's versatile. He's big. He's strong. He's a Spags type guy. And he's a special teams monster as well.
Yeah, Jamari Connor this year. They drafted Nick Jones late too.
Absolutely. So, and Nazeeh Johnson as well. So he does a fantastic job at finding DBs late, which is phenomenal. So
he's great at finding guys that are coachable by the guy that they have coaching them. And Dave Merritt's been a monster at what he's done. Dave Merritt deserves all the credit in the world for why that DB room looks the way that it does. Yeah. But Veach gets credit for giving him the guys that he can teach to do it. So that's the whole yin and yang of this. And I think it's a different, and I want to touch on it because somebody brought up the Pioli stuff earlier. He was very good at talent evaluation, right? It's the yin and yang stuff that he wasn't good at. It's the deals. It's the player personnel. It's the communication with Andy. It's anybody. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go check out Kingdom Cast episode with Jeremy Macklin. That'll enlighten you somewhat on some of that conversation. But legitimately, it's
that was Don Dorsey.
And yeah, that was Dorsey. Sorry, not Pioli. Pioli was Captain Gumwrapper.
He was
That's a whole nother operation. Captain Gumwrapper was a whole nother segment. But the same concept though with Dorsey. It wasn't the yin and yang stuff, and Pioli had a lot of problems with it too. But there's other reasons for that. People still like Dorsey. Most people don't traditionally, from what I understand, aren't big fans of Scott Pioli in that room, in that building. So, from that perspective, I think we need to make sure that as fans and as people that cover and watch this team and do all the stuff that people do with this team, we've talked about it for years on the show, set proper expectations, but let's give credit to all of the people involved, and let's also let them do their jobs and not panic so much. Guys, the Brett Veach freak out every 6 months is slowly starting to drive me insane.
Yeah.
Whether it's
That's
the
just
free
not,
agency
that's just not
stuff
smart
or
people saying not smart
midseason,
things.
like what he's done.
He's the best general manager.
GMs go to Canton for this. This is a Canton resume at this point.
Yeah.
It is.
Pretty
When
good.
you're a GM of a dynasty and you're like this is you don't get better than this. And the other thing I'll say is traditionally with GMs, they're not able to identify a problem and then go about resolving it that year in the fashion that we've seen him do it every year. And I'll be honest, they thought they had a resolution last year and it just didn't work the way they wanted it to in the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
One
They also
more note I
wanted
wanna
to do
make.
something extra but couldn't do because of Chris Jones.
Yeah,
agents.
one more little note I want to make on this Hollywood Brown signing. Per our guy Charles Goldman here, I'm bringing up
Yes, Goldie.
the tweet. Guy who would really love this signing is the late great Jerez Paler, because turns out Marquise Brown was a member of the 2019 All Juice team. So that is so if there's any kind of endorsement, that's
a good one to get.
That's a pretty ringing one, at least for the play of what
Especially
he is
around
on the
here.
field. So that's a pretty high endorsement right there. So safe to say, I think the Chiefs got a bit better today with all the free agent moves that they ended up making. Obviously, free agency is still long from over, and there's still some moves that Chiefs potentially could make. I think a lot of it, like we kind of anticipate, kind of hinges on L'Jarius Sneed and what they ended up doing with him. But as they've proven, they can obviously do some other moves around that and still have that uncertainty going on. So,
is there anybody you guys want them to look at now? I mean,
anyone left?
The only position that I think that, and I think they're more confident in it probably than us and the fan and as the fan base and everybody else is left tackle. And listening to Andy talk about Wanye and Donovan Smith kind of tipped me off somewhat to how they feel about that. Like, he basically said, yeah, Donovan was a great vet, got to come in and teach Wanye and help Wanye and played well for us while he was here. And that was pretty much it.
Right.
And they've done nothing at tackle. So I think they're either expecting Wanye to be the starter at left tackle next year, which, if so, great. If they think they're ready, he's ready for it. If that's your answer at left tackle, spectacular. If not, correct, Kareem. If not, Tyron Smith is still available. I know I've seen Mekhi Becton around and talked about. There's some other guys on the tackle market.
I think out of all those tackles that are still left, I think Josh Jones is probably the best fit for us. He can play right and left. He's not going to be overly expensive. He's still fairly young. Yeah, I mean, as for tackles, there's not a ton available out there. It's older guys that have some injury issues or dudes that just aren't that good.
Yeah, Tyron Jones is still out there. You know, he's a
Prince is still a free agent.
Prince is still, yeah.
You know, he's
and
one
obviously,
of our guys.
some of these moves.
Surprised to see him still out there.
There's a couple surprising guys that are still available
as much as we really like him. You know,
there's another guy that's I'm about to say Mike Dana is another guy who should be signed by now easily, and it's very surprising that he's not. I think that the moves that the Chiefs have made, and also the lack of moves, definitely is kind of telling of what they kind of think of certain situations. And from everything I heard, it seemed like their Chiefs were pretty high on Wanye, you know, from everything that they saw from him last year. So I don't think it's going to be completely given to him, but I think they'll probably end up entering in with him being left tackle one going into training camp, and it'll kind of be his job to lose. But we'll see. There's still some, Donovan Smith signed fairly late last year, I think. So there's always some bargain bin finds that you can see. There might be a couple other surprise releases.
There'll be guys cut later this year too. There'll be players that you don't expect to get cut either in training camp or before camp or.
Yeah. And this is another one of those things too. Wanye was a third rounder. We knew there was going to be some developmental things. He's going to have take some time to learn. He's got talent, and we saw that last year. Like sometimes he played really, really well. Sometimes you saw that rookie and the lack of technique and some of those weaknesses. Really, exactly. You saw some of that shine through as well. So going back, talking about the draft just a little bit, we're very, very fortunate that I think our three biggest areas that we need to improve on in the draft are probably the three deepest positions in the draft with wide receiver, tackle, and defensive tackle. So if we don't go offensive tackle in the first round, say we go get a wideout or a defensive tackle, you can sit and you can look at tackle in the second, third, fourth, fifth rounds. There are some still solid dudes. Maybe they don't have the all-around game. Maybe they're great at pass protection and they suck at run blocking, or vice versa. Or maybe, one guy's maybe just set more of a right tackle than a left. But there's going to be a lot of guys, I'd say in that third to fourth round, that could come in and really push Wanye for that starting left tackle, whether it's like a Blake Fisher from Notre Dame, or Roger from Washington. I know he played left tackle until Penix came and they moved him to the right side so he could protect Penix's blind side. Rosengarten. There's a lot of dudes out there that I think can really come in. Javon Foster from Missouri is probably going to be a third, fourth round dude that can be, I think, a really, really good tackle. So we're going to have all sorts of options and directions we can go in. It just kind of depends on which one we're going to go first.
Yeah. I think Kareem right here got a great question from us to kind of cap this off very nicely here.
You want to pull up one of the Sims, or you just want to spitball a prospect?
Maybe we'll just try spitballing here. So pick 32, post Hollywood. What are we thinking now? At pick 32, Randy, you just went and listed off a bunch of draft guys, but you are the resident draft guy here. Now that a somewhat big receiver is added to the name, or added to the Chiefs, what are you leaning here, 32, if you had to make one pick right now?
If I had to make one pick, I'm going to look at tackle, just because I think that's the biggest question mark. Unless there's like an A.D. Mitchell or a Keon Coleman or your boy Xavier Worthy kind of just hanging out. With that wide receiver with Marquise Brown now, I really look at guys like Jordan Morgan, Tyler Guyton, maybe Amarius Mims if he falls a little bit.
I hate to ruin everybody's day with Jordan Morgan. He will not be a Chief.
I know the short arms thing, but go watch the film. I
understand. You can talk to me about the film until you turn purple. They have a 33-inch arm threshold. He has 32 7/8, and they will not touch him. They don't do it.
Morgan's an athletic, physical dude.
He is. He's great.
He's going to be a great player somewhere in the league. He's going to be a great player.
He's coming back off an ACL, and he played fantastic. So I'm a Jordan Morgan fan.
For the Chiefs at tackle. He might play guard here. They might draft him to take Trey's spot, maybe, if they don't want to pay Trey. But
yeah.
But a lot of people are saying Troy Fatanu as well, but he's 6'4".
Yeah.
Are the Chiefs going to draft a 6'4" tackle?
Not normally.
We're gonna see. John, what do you think? John, what do you think at 32?
Obviously it depends how it falls, but I'm going to go wide receiver. I like Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. I think he can do a lot of the things. I think, what does he run, a 4.3, something like that?
He's still plenty fast. Yes.
Pretty fast.
He's bigger. He can do
6'2", 215.
I like that, especially considering, like you said, Hollywood's a little bit smaller. But I like Mitchell. I think he can do a lot of things. He's a big body. He's a big target. And him alongside Rashee Rice or Travis Kelce, that doesn't sound too bad.
Right.
Yeah. Kyle, what are you leaning?
Well, first I want to pause for a second and say thank you for everybody who's hanging out with us, checking out this news, watching us. I think we've probably got some people that are just finding us for the first time, just judging by the number of eyeballs that are currently watching us live. If you are new here, do us a favor, like the channel, follow the channel. If you're on Facebook, like the page. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. Drop a like there so that other Chiefs fans and people like us can all get together and hang out. We will be doing more lives throughout the off season, so there'll be more chances. We'll do some Q&A stuff. Actually, that was kind of what we were going to do with John tonight until this happened. But do that. And then what I would say is, as far as the pick goes, I'm going to be odd here probably for some folks. I'm probably looking in the defensive tackle room. If Chris Jenkins is available at 32, I think I'm probably running to the podium with the card in my hand.
Yeah. He's really good.
Robinson and Mizzou.
I like Robinson, but I think I probably like him in the second round more than I like him in the first round.
He's not a first rounder.
I don't think
In my
he's
eyes.
got it. Now he is made in a lab for Steve Spagnuolo's defense.
He can play. He'll definitely be able to play.
Well, I mean, if Steve got to build a measurement person in a lab, it's Robinson from Mizzou. Like he checks every single measurable box that they like for defensive linemen. But I think Jenkins is just too insanely good of a player at that position. And I know you just paid Chris, but if you want to keep Chris playing at a really high level, much like with Travis, you want to put things around him so that they don't have to do it by themselves.
You need somebody better than Derek Nottie.
And while Travis is doing a lot of the lifting from the weapons perspective on offense, he still has 15 with him on the offense.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason L'Jarius is not here and it's Chris, now it's Chris and Trent, which don't get me wrong, Trent's great. I think Trent's going to be one of the best players on the defense for years to come. Yeah. But it's his third year, it's early, and that's not on the defensive line to help Chris. And Karlaftis has been great, but he's also not an interior player. Putting a guy that can run stop, can play some of the first and second down snaps where Chris can maybe, I don't know, take a breath instead of taking a breath while he's kind of on the field sometimes. And again, the dude's asked to play more snaps than almost any D tackle in the league. So if he doesn't play every play at 105%, I get it. But if you don't have to ask him to do that as often, A, he doesn't get chastised by people watching on the sidelines saying he's slacking. And then B, he's not asked to be on the field that often, and you can spell him a little more. And then you don't have the scenario if you watch the franchise where he's like, yo, I need a play. Can somebody help me? And then Mike makes the next play, and then Mike's like, all right, your turn, because I'm done now.
Yeah.
Another point, Kyle, I think
Chris makes the next play.
Is good with defensive tackle too, which is always kind of why I liked it. He also gets to learn from Chris Jones.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why you still have Chris. It would be really nice to have him learn. And just loading up the D line. If a guy like Chris Jenkins is still there, I would also be very happy about that pick. For me, I'm still riding the receiver train. I think Hollywood's good, but it's a 1-year deal, so we still have long-term issues to solve there. Still need at least another guy in that receiver room. I've made it very known I am a huge Xavier Worthy fan. He has been my draft crush this entire offseason, basically since the national championship, or whatever the Texas was in the game before the national championship. I don't know if they made it. Regardless, ever since the end of the season, I've been really on the Xavier Worthy train.
They played Michigan, didn't they? That was them that played Michigan in the championship game, wasn't it?
Was it?
God, okay. I don't remember. It feels like it's been like 8 years ago now.
That was like 4 years ago. Yeah.
Huh?
It was Washington.
Oh yeah, it was Washington. Texas.
I knew it.
By Washington.
I almost said it wasn't because I saw just purple team, but I thought it might have been TCU from last season. But
yeah, the Washington Texas game might have been the best game of the playoffs, though. That's why I was stuck on that.
And like I said, between the two, Texas had some good wide receivers last year, but between the two, I am more so on the Xavier Worthy camp, and I think having him for 5 years guaranteed in this offense with Andy Reid would be unfair. It'd be a cheat code, I think, if we're being real. Xavier Worthy, I think, is one of those really special talents that you're not going to find a whole lot. I mean, this receiver draft is loaded. Don't get me wrong, and I wouldn't mind even double dipping that receiver still. Just because it's that talented. But when you have a guy like Xavier Worthy, 4.21 speed, I mean, I would like that pick a lot. So that's still where I'm leaning at. If he's even available, I still don't even think he'll be available at 30.
I don't either. That's the one thing with the Worthy thing is, look, man, John Ross went a pick ahead of Patrick Mahomes because he ran a 4.2. Like
John Ross was much less of a prospect than Xavier Worthy.
Exactly, and he went ninth.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
yeah. I think the NFL also might have got burned from that a little bit, and they ain't gonna let that happen again. But
bro, dumb team's gonna dumb team. They do not learn in this league. Some teams learn, and then other teams forget, and they do the same thing.
You can't teach fast.
There's another name in the wide receiver group.
Risk for fast.
There's another name in the wide receiver group that is not getting nearly enough love for how he would fit in Kansas City's offense, and it's Keon Coleman. And
absolutely. The last.
I think he has the highest play speed of anybody in the draft. You can talk to me about track speed. I was talking about whatever.
I was talking with Tom just the other day about Keon Coleman. He reminds me like my best comp is he's a more juiced up Brandon Marshall. He's a big body, got some dynamic play to him. I think he's more explosive after the catch than Brandon was, but he's got that 50-50 ball where he can go up and get it. He can run you over. He can jump over you. But in the last mock draft I did last night, I went with a double dip. I got Keon Coleman, and I came back with Xavier Leggett.
We all agree, Dan. We all agree.
Yes, so it would, I would not be mad if we double dipped and got a couple of those big playmakers in the first two. That wouldn't make me mad at all.
Be some beef out there, boys.
Right.
A weird ass accent, like just you thought Patrick Mahomes' voice was weird. Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's
the thing. The reason I like I said, the Keon Coleman thing. He hit 23.85 on the gauntlet drill. 23 miles an hour, like 23.85 miles.
Was so much faster than his 40 time.
And that's running while catching the ball at multiple points throughout the it's one of those things where what he would be in this offense would be Brian Thomas Jr. is great, but I don't think he's going to be there anywhere close to 32. So unfortunately, no. That's the thing. I do think Keon Coleman will be available near the end of the first round. I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. or Xavier Worthy will be anywhere close to the end of the first round.
I'd be shocked if Thomas makes it past 15.
So if it's Coleman, Jenkins, if it's Coleman or Chris Jenkins, who do you take?
I'd probably take Chris Jenkins.
I'm probably taking Chris Jenkins still. Yeah.
I like Keon Coleman.
That's because the receiver room is so stacked. Keon Coleman is great and would be a great fit, but I also think you can find a similar talent in round 2 or 3.
As Randy mentioned with Leggett. As Randy mentioned with Leggett. First of all, people sleep on Leggett. That dude, I don't know why. He's got everything you want. I get it. He's also from South Carolina, and if you listen to that man talk for 4 seconds, you will immediately know he is from South Carolina.
He's deep South Carolina, I think.
Oh yeah, that accent was real.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think he went viral with "Is that what he really sounds like?" And yes, that is exactly what he really sounds like.
What 6'3", 220, 220?
225, and he ran a 4.29.
Yeah, he's 4.3 big boy.
That might be the underrated play. Like they may do that because he's got the tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
could be a very similar.
Leggett is that there's just a whole lot unknown with Leggett with his 1 year production, some injuries, some other things. He was.
This is why he might be there at 64. Hey, there you go.
So he's a bit of a late bloomer, but he's got some experience now. And when he figured it out last year, the dude figured it out, and that was with pedestrian ass Spencer Rattler throwing the football. So,
Randy, I thought you
I'm not even going to get started on Rattler tonight because I
was told that Randy loves Spencer Rattler. I was told that. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Nah, we're good.
Okay.
What I'm hearing.
I'm not going to go there tonight.
Yeah.
Before Garrett gets to his news about our cornerback tweeting like a wide receiver, Hollywood Brown tweeted out his farewell, all love to Arizona tweet, and has officially made the move to the Chiefs now. So all that fun time. Garrett, what do you have for us from L'Jarius Sneed?
Yeah, turns out L'Jarius Sneed is back to tweeting once again, and big improvement this time. So he's tweeted out, as you can see here, two little emojis. I don't know what kind of emojis these are exactly.
They look like they're thinking emojis.
He's like sitting. He's just like sitting, waiting emoji, and then he has an upside down smiley face right here. Very interesting. A dot. I believe that's called an ellipsis. Yeah, it's called an ellipsis. So had to shout out big improvement. His last tweet was just a bunch of words, So he's learning from Chris Jones. He's just putting the emojis out here, It's very good. Why does our
defense tweet like wide receivers? I don't understand.
It's like we have to figure out how to read hieroglyphics now.
It is a whole act. We have to really figure out, what the two. I mean, why is there two of them? He's only one person. Why is there two people waiting?
Well, it's probably him and his agent. Well, and actually, take that back. They probably should have been more people because we talked about it earlier. He's just got a newborn and he's got his girl, so there's probably a couple of people waiting. So
So I think that's the update on the Sneed front, and that kind of will wrap this episode up for us. We've covered the beef of what we need to talk about tonight, which is Hollywood Brown signing with the Chiefs. Very big, exciting addition, and we'll have to see how it goes forward as Randy's cat makes an appearance. That's awesome. Bro is going after something. Yeah, he's a spider on your wall.
He likes to jump up in the
Tank
windows.
appearances. We had to have our annual pet appearance on the show because you're not going to get Tank to show up tonight because he's at his grandma's
no
house.
scout tonight.
Yeah,
Tom's
no
not
scouts.
here.
That was S'mores. S'mores just made an appearance.
S'mores,
Well,
that's
hi,
a great
S'mores.
name. Yeah. So with that, also shout out to our guy Corey, the artist
Hello,
chief.
Corey.
What's up? But yeah, it was a good episode here. I think
get on that Hollywood Brown painting now, Corey.
Yep, Corey. You know who to paint next. We need a Hollywood Brown one coming up here. Maybe in front of the Hollywood sign.
And it's Randy sign.
There you go.
We'll hang it in the fire pit.
Exactly. Yeah, Randy will hang it up in his living room.
Nothing works bad.
Dude,
Just
my wife says
Hollywood
about
Brown
that.
and Randy.
I told Randy we're gonna hang it up directly above his bed so he gets to look at it every night before he goes.
That's even better.
We're just gonna paint
Even
the
better.
Hollywood mural on his
On
ceiling.
the roof, like just on the ceiling.
Yeah,
I know a guy who
think
paints
Corey's
murals on walls. We might know an artist that can do that.
We might know a guy, right?
Yeah. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like Kyle said, we've got some good viewership tonight, so we really appreciate that. Definitely be sure to check us out at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check us out over on YouTube. Go ahead and like and subscribe over there. We have a lot of good stuff on YouTube, as well as Kingdom Recon, which goes on over our YouTube, which Randy is a co-host of, along with Josh Wingate and Tom. So go check that out. They got a lot of good draft content coming up, and we're going to be
for my co-host to not feel under the weather to get the next episode out.
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna be diving into draft stuff very soon here on this program. We just got to really get the free agency stuff out of the way here and have a couple more moves, and we'll have a clearer look at what the Chiefs might look at next season. So. Thank you all for tuning in, watching, liking, all that good stuff. And we will see you guys in the next episode of The Kingdom Says. Cheers.